Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to go over something that I think is a very nuanced topic that will actually make a really big difference in how your deadlifts feel and also how your squats feel. I'm primarily going to focus on deadlift because I feel like there's the most variation with this in terms of deadlift style, as opposed to squat. It tends to be a little bit more similar. I wanted to go over essentially head position in the squat and the deadlift and how that basically affects the kinetic chain. So our head position is going to determine primarily the tightness of our upper back muscles, and that is important in terms of the deadlift because essentially the more that your head is facing downward, the more that you're going to be able to depress your scapula, the more loose that your upper back is going to be able to be, the more reach you're going to be able to get with your arms. Whereas if you have much more of a your head is going more upwards, you're going to have much more tightness in your upper back muscles, and you're going to have a little bit better, easier time, I guess, keeping the barbell a little bit closer to your body and maintaining that torso position. So I wanted to go over essentially, this is a big change I made in my deadlift. Historically, I've noticed that my best deadlift sets tend to be when I am more so leading with the with my head off of the floor, kind of like in the direction that like my back is going upwards. So what I mean, if you watch this video, for example, I'm going to turn down the volume. You can see that as I am, oh, it's not really working. Let me see. Let me try to put this to half speed so you guys can just kind of see. So when I'm going off of the floor, you can see I have my head down a little bit more. But as I do get more, and it creates a little bit more reach in my arms. But as I do get more and more off the floor, the more that my head is going to kind of follow my body. And basically what that's allowing me to do is I'm able to get a lot of reach off the floor with my already long arms, which basically is going to maximize what my leverage is. And so you can see right here, my head is still kind of facing a little bit down. You can see how long that my arms are. Now as I do get a little bit more moving off of the floor in the deadlift, and as I lead with my head, you can see how my upper back is able to stay tight. I'm able to keep the bar closer to my center of mass, which is going to be my midfoot, and able to have a much smoother lockout. Lots of times, so my sticking point is always going to be somewhere just right around the knee, just because I tend to rely a lot more on my back based off of how I am built. But because I'm thinking a little bit more of leading with my head allows me to get more leg drive off of the floor and reduce the chance of that happening. I wanted to also go over how Jamal Browner does this, since he's one of the best deadlifters in the entire world. You can see how when he sets up, he's going to do a similar thing to me, where basically he's going to have his head a little bit more lagging behind, not really like looking upwards. But what he does is he leads with his head still. So you can see he's getting a lot of reach by this setup. And then as he gets more towards lockout, he leads more with his head and leans back. So what that's basically doing is allowing for him to get into a little bit better of a position and also use his muscular strengths a little bit better. Jamal has a stronger back relative to his legs. Also, he lacks the mobility where he can get in a position to really get a super efficient sumo deadlift. In comparison to Yuri Belk, which I'll show the difference here. Jamal's head follows his deadlift off of the floor. Whereas if you look at Yuri Belkin, you can see that when he starts off of the floor, let me find one of his competition. You can see that what he basically is doing here is he already is starting off with a very, very upward-facing head. He's able to get his hips extremely close to the bar and whatnot, and that's just because for his own personal leverages and muscular strengths, this is what makes the most sense for him. But the same things apply. And essentially, whether or not you choose to do it style sort of like what I do and Jamal do versus what Yuri does, is going to basically be a lot dependent upon your mobility and how your muscular strengths. And the only way you can really know that is by experimenting with different things in different positions. So just to show here, you can see his head is super already off the floor, but that's because that's how he's built. That's how his hips are built. But regardless, his head is dictating a lot of the position of his upper body, and essentially how he's able to complete the lift and get a lot more leg drive off of the floor. Another example of this is going to be on my. I'll show like a little bit of a slight difference with from here to my my set of 600 for 3. You can see how here. Oh my gosh. half speed. You can see how I'm not able to get in as good of a position. I'm able to get a lot of reach, which makes it easier for me off of the floor. But because I'm not really leading as much with my head, as you can see how my eyes aren't really looking as forward. I'm not leaning back as much with my head. Essentially, like the head also weighs like 10 pounds, so it does change your center of mass a little bit more. But they do a much better job of it, and that's my best deadlift rep on this set. And then on this third rep, it's a little bit less of my eye and my head leading, and it's a harder rep. So the same things apply. Like I think I could have gone that third rep at like 7.5 RPE if I had not messed it up on my first rep. So essentially, your head is going to dictate where you're going to end up in terms of essentially how you're going to. It affects the rest of your kinetic chain quite a bit. Like the same principles apply, but this is something that can really help aid out your deadlift with this in terms of like upper back muscles and maximizing sort of like depending on how you're built and your own leverages, how much you rely on your back versus your legs is sort of how I think of this. You have a stronger legs like Yuri Belkin relative to your back, you can probably get away with this. Also, you have the sort of the hip mobility and the hip structure to be able to be strong in some sort of position like that. Whereas if you're built somewhere thing more like Jamal, where you have a little bit of a stronger back, you're probably going to be a little bit better off going with more of a style where instead of your head is starting up, like looking up like this, you kind of go like facing a little more like a 45-degree angle, and then as you go towards lockout around your knees, you really think about craning your neck up or at least putting your eyes up. Now on squat, it's pretty ubiquitous. Like there's not much of a difference. The main thing with the squat is that if you have your head just facing down the entire time, you're losing all the tightness in your upper back. And what that's basically resulting in is you're going to fold over like a taco at the bottom of your squat, like crazy, a lot more than you actually would. And you won't really have as tight of a brace and a shelf. So you can see here how when I get down into the hole, immediately I'm looking up. And so a lot of you guys who are from like a high school weight room, you might have had the whole spiel of like chest up like all the time. And we don't want that prior to going down on the squat, because what we want to have is a position where our ribs are stacked over our pelvis. A good cue that I like to use here is sort of belly button or ribs to belly button in terms of stacking your ribs over your pelvis. And if you are looking up during this stage, you're not going to be able to have it. You're going to have too much extension in your back, and you're not going to be able to have a strong brace. So when I'm going down, I'm looking a little bit more like just as a neutral head position, sort of similar to the deadlift. Although I'm still looking somewhat ahead. My eyes are a little bit more down, so I can maintain that strong brace. And once I get into the hole and I start the ascent, I'm immediately thinking of looking up and craning my head a little bit more up. So that's something that you can also do on the squat. So hopefully that makes sense. This is a little bit more of a brief video in terms of the technique, but this can really make a massive difference in terms of how your deadlift and how your squat feel. And essentially, it's going to dictate upper back tightness on your deadlift, the contributions relative throughout the lift of back versus leg strength, and also depending upon how your hips are built. If you have more really hips that can be a lot more abducted or basically pointing more outwards, and you're strong in that position, you might be able to get away with more of a Yuri Belkin style deadlift. If you're more built like me, and in terms of Jamal Brown in terms of hip structure, you're probably going to want to have less of that, and probably have a little bit more of a 45-degree angle, like looking forward, and then as you go more towards the top of the lift, then you kind of lead with your eyes / your head to help get your upper back a little bit more tight and not have as much rounding. Having some sort of when you are setting up looking down at the bar can help you out with getting you a little bit more reach in your upper back, because you don't want to have a super tight upper back. You want to basically have your scapula depressed and then keep your arms long. A good cue there is just kind of thinking of I guess instead of pulling your shoulders back, let them hang loose and just protect your armpits. It's kind of I like to think about. And then on the squat, before you do go down, you don't want to look up on the descent. Look straight ahead or a 45-degree angle down. Keep your ribs stacked, and then as you do go down into the hole and you can actually get up out of it, that's when you want to sort of have your head up, lead with your head, so you can create that upper back tightness and maintain that really strong shelf so that you don't get folded over like a taco, and keep your hips more close and / under the barbell. Hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please ask down in the comments down below. If you guys are interested in coaching or programs, please go to AdamPeelerFitness.com and follow me on Instagram at AdamDPeeler.